Today I'm going to make a beautifully satisfying breakfast bowl with beetroot and goat's cheese mash, roasted pumpkin, fried tomatoes, smashed avocados, coddled eggs, toasted sunflower seeds, a feast of a breakfast. Hello, I'm Nadine Abensur. I'm a cookery writer and the author of 7 cookery books, including the Cranks Bible, which has just recently been reprinted. I'm a gallery owner and curator, and I'm an aspiring musician and artist. But my passions invariably lead me back to the kitchen. I can't help it. I always end up back here. I enjoy the honesty of cooking, the bonhomie of the table, and the connection to the earth that cooking assumes. I live on a lush acre in Mullumbimby. It's absolutely magnificent. It's so green and fertile, and close to many thriving farmers markets, and I'll use the produce from those markets in this series of short videos. Good morning, and it is a really beautiful morning out there today. And I'm going to make a breakfast bowl full of vegetable goodness. And I'm going to use what people refer to as a grain, but in fact isn't a grain, it's a grass, and that's buckwheat. And I think it's highly underrated. I know it looks as dull as anything, but I'm going to turn this into something really quite delicious. And I'm going to accompany it with some roasted pumpkin, some beetroot, which I have left over from last night, and I'm going to turn into a quick dip. This is a homemade pesto, which I made a couple of days ago with rocket from the garden and blanched almonds and olive oil, and I put actually very little garlic in this one, and parmesan. I'm going to saute some tomatoes, make an avocado mash, which I love to see on breakfast menus all over the place these days, some coddled eggs, and lots of toasted seeds to sprinkle on top. So that's my collection of simple ingredients, which I'm going to turn into a delicious breakfast or brunch. So I'm just going to quickly prepare my pumpkin. This is the kind of thing that you can do if you've cooked pumpkin the night before. Keep some aside for the next morning. I've got some pumpkin ready basted with a bit of olive oil, salt, pepper. It's quickly going to go into a hot oven. It'll be about 25 minutes, and that'll give me plenty of time to get everything else done. So I'm going to start by sautéing the buckwheat. So just a thin film of olive oil in the pan. Really not much at all. And while that's happening, I can very quickly blitz the beetroot. So I've got this little mini blender. It's perfect for this. And there's the equivalent of about 1 whole large beetroot. And a couple of big chunks of goat's cheese. And I might thin it down with something in a second as well, but just a little, just moments. And to that, I'm going to add just a tablespoonful of yogurt. There we go. Fabulous purple of the beetroot. And I'm going to fold some chopped parsley into it. Although it's quite beautiful enough, just the way it is really. But a tiny bit of chopped parsley on top of that. There we go. 1 beetroot dip ready to go. In the meantime, The oil is hot. I can add the buckwheat. There's about a cup and a half of buckwheat in here, so about 300 grams. Let it sizzle for just a moment. And I do like to work in these big, wide pans, so you get a really good surface area and things don't get too cloyy and stuck together. The bigger the space for the whole thing to move in, the better. And I'm even going to boil it in here. And while I do that, yes, I could, while I do that, I can prepare my kale. Now kale, I know just how incredibly popular it's become. In my book, it has to be sliced very, very finely, as finely as you can manage, as finely as I can manage for that matter. And that buckwheat, in the meantime, is smelling just right. Just getting quite nutty. So into it now, I'm going to add a little salt and some tamari. A good teaspoon, and then cover it with boiling water. Just cover it. And then put a lid on it. Bring it to the boil, and then I'll lower the heat. Then coming back to this kale, I'm going to put it into a bowl and rub salt into it. Just enough to break down the cellulose and the oxyacillin acid, which is actually not that great for you. And kale, ideally, has to be let to soften like this for, ideally I would do this overnight and have it so that by the next morning it's almost cooked, almost pickled in the salt. Otherwise, just saute this in a little oil, because in fact raw kale is not that great for you. It's already quite soft and much more digestible this way. And into it I'm going to add some toasted sesame seeds and make a sort of makeshift gamasio, which I remember from the good old days of the good old early days of vegetarian cooking. We used to use it all the time. I don't see it so much these days. I know it's still available, but I'm going to make a quick version of my own. And I'm just going to put the sesame seeds into a frying pan. With a little salt. And let that brown for a while. And then I'll gently pound it and add it to the kale. That's toasting nicely, and I think just ready for the mortar and pestle. So we're just going to quickly. But I'll come back to that in a minute. In the meantime, I'm going to use the same frying pan to quickly fry up some tomatoes. The moment the oil comes to a sizzle, I'll put them all in. And again, little salt, little pepper. Give them a moment like that. And then a splash of balsamic. Just because it goes so well with tomatoes, the sweetness, just it almost creates almost a jam. It'll certainly create a beautifully rich coating on the tomatoes. Now I'm just going to pound the sesame and salt together. But I won't use it till the very end. Then I'm going to smash up some avocado. You can add all sorts of things to the avocado, you know. You can add cumin into it. You can add some sautéed sweet corn kernels. Today, I'm just going to put a bit of olive oil in it, that's all. Tomatoes are smelling really fabulous, so is the buckwheat. I'm just going to leave that film of oil on top of that avocado just for now until I'm ready to serve up. And also just a little squeeze of lime. I'm going to use it really soon, so it should be okay and not oxidize too badly. Bit of pepper, bit of salt, and leave that there for now until I need to come back to it at the end. Tomatoes, you can see, are starting to just soften and wrinkle up, and oh, that vinegar smells amazing. So there we go. And the buckwheat has come to the boil. I'm going to just lower the heat a little, keep it going a bit longer. So finally, I'm going to coddle some eggs, which means that I want them not soft-boiled, not hard-boiled, but somewhere in between. So I'm going to put them into an empty pan, and I'm going to make half a dozen. Cover them with cold water and bring to a really fierce boil. Almost everything is done now. Just before the end, I'll toast some sunflower seeds to put on top. And by the time the pumpkin is ready, everything else will be too. So here's the buckwheat, exactly as it should be. Dried out, no liquid left in it, but not mushy. And it really does help to cook this in a big, wide, flat pan, because you see it hasn't all stuck together. There's still a looseness to it. The grains, for want of a better word, are still quite distinct. And that's what you want. You do not want a gluggy mess. So finally, the sunflower seeds. Put them in, again, just with some salt. Not, as I do keep seeing, with soy sauce, which just makes them taste bitter and burnt, and I don't enjoy it at all. So just with a little salt until they're toasted and golden and crisp, and brings out all the flavors, and again, much better for you. All these ingredients need a little coaxing to bring out first of all, their nutrients, and B, make them all digestible. You don't want a pile of seeds and raw vegetables just indiscriminately put together in a way that actually, when you think about it, does not make you feel that great. And now I'm going to just put the parsley through the buckwheat. Because I do admit, it's not the prettiest looking thing, but it is rustic and comforting and nourishing, and with all the vegetables it's going to be fabulous. So the eggs are now properly boiling. The water's really quite fierce, so I'm going to turn off the heat, put the lid on it and count to 4 minutes, or time it to 4 minutes. Put them aside and just put them aside for 4 minutes, because I want them, as I said, in between soft and hard. So that's how I want them to look. Just firm whites, slightly firming yolks, but soft in the middle. Yep, I think it's all done. The buckwheat, the pumpkin, the tomatoes, the kale. Look, by the way, at just how reduced that kale has become just with having sprinkled a little salt into it. Now that's broken down and really easy to digest. The beetroot, the avocado, the eggs, everything's ready. So I'm going to quickly blend it up because I'm actually getting starving. So just, I don't want too much buckwheat, just enough. I can always take seconds. And a little of the beetroot. Whoops. And given that that's my favorite bit, I think I'll be generous with that. Yum. And the avocado, oh, my other favorite bit. So plenty of that. Yes, heaps. And the tomatoes. Oh, I think they're my favorite bit too. They're really beautifully caramelized now. And pumpkin. A couple of pieces. That's enough. The good old kale, to which I'm going to add that thrown together gamasio. And I'll add a little at the end. Excuse my fingers, just a bit of the kale. A bit more of that gamasio on top. And the eggs. You could always have 2, but I think 1 will do me. And a little drizzle of the pesto over the pumpkin, maybe a little bit over the buckwheat as well. Here we go. And the toasted sunflower seeds, which I put them in a jar and take them to work and nibble on them during the day. And a little raining of a little bit of alfalfa sprout. Just a little nest of it. And a little bit of parsley. And if that isn't a super delicious and healthy breakfast, I don't know what is. And I'm going to eat it for breakfast before work. I've got buckwheat and kale with homemade gamasio and sautéed balsamic tomatoes and a smashed avocado and beetroot and goat's cheese arrangement. I hate the word dip. Roasted pumpkin, a homemade pesto, a softly boiled egg or coddled egg, and some sprouts. It's the kind of breakfast I want to come back to after a big long walk on the beach. It's vibrant and full of flavour and most importantly full of chi. I know it'll set me up for the day. Well, I hope my breakfast sets you up for the day, and I look forward to sharing more recipes with you next time. Well, I'm going to work.